All righty. Okay, we have transitioned over. I can see the little audio squiggly bar. That's still working. Nothing has changed. All right, awesome. Happy Sunday afternoon. Welcome, everyone, to episode 8 of the Armchair Admirals and Generals podcast. I am Tree0311, and I am here with my two co-hosts for today's episode, and we're continuing to mix it up for content, but also bringing in new personalities and new perspectives to keep things interesting and keep everybody informed. So let's start with Atira Kell, who you all know and maybe love, maybe don't. Atira, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody. Nikov isn't here. I have to pick up the slack, okay?
That's how we're starting. Let's go.
Holy shit, what a way to start. Yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah, this piece of shit. All right.
Yeah, God bless. Hello, I'm Atira Kell. You can find me at YouTube/Atira Kell. I make videos on most Star Citizen, but also other science fiction games. Currently have a long-running Mech Warrior series, and I'm working my way through Hogwarts because I'm not opposed to fantasy games either. What most people know me for and how I got started in this is the A Soldier's Opinion videos, where I do deep dives into the historical past of a specific military profession, focusing in on either the platforms they used or the skill sets required, and then translating that into today what we have, and then also projecting forward into Star Citizen, all with the attempt to try and inspire CIG devs to create a slightly more realistic take on the military professions instead of just making up unrealistic things, right? Try and ground it in reality. So that's me.
Very
so
good.
A Halo that makes sense.
A Halo that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have game.
Yeah. And we have a new face, somebody I've been looking forward to having on the podcast, on the show. And before I introduce Sulyce, Atira Kell, your background, your military background.
Oh, well, I've been an armor officer. I'm a military intelligence officer. I've got 22 years in, still inactive, and happen to be on my sunset tour. I'm out the door here in a couple of years. I'm going to retire, but until then, I still chug away in the great DoD.
Until they offer you your next bonus. Let's be honest,
because that bonus cannot exceed 06 pay long term. So no.
No 1-star for you?
No 1-star in my future. Hell no. A lot of Muldoons would have to go by the wayside in some great cataclysm for me to make it to that point. So I'm okay with that, though. It's time to move. It's time to move on.
Sweet. Well, we have a new face today. Just like last episode, we brought on Sergeant Tickles to come hang out with Nikov and I. And so today, Atira Kell and I are excited to have on a new face. Sulyce, why don't you tell everybody about your sort of gaming background, content creation background, and then your military background as well.
Yeah. So number one, I really hate the fact that Generals is above my name. That it's not. I wasn't that high up in the ranks there. So we're all beat by Atira.
It's Armchair. It's Armchair.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the Armchair approach. So first off, I want to start by saying thank you both for your continued service and obviously defense of our country and everything else that you're doing. So one, thank you so much. I'm about 6 years removed from my service. So I've been enjoying civilian life over at Amazon, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. But I just want to say thank you. I want to take a tactical pause and say really appreciate your continued service. So I've been content creating for about 8 years now, going all the way back to Elder Scrolls Online. Always dabbled and always veered towards the world of lore. Kind of the reason why I play a game, not so much the execution or the transactional pieces of the game, but kind of the why, to go search and explore to learn more about the game and the world. So started out with Elder Scrolls Online, started creating content with a group called the Lore Seekers. So shout out to the Lore Seekers, Mike and Jibs. Great group there. And then we moved to the Natural Ones, Dungeons and Dragons, which we talked about that pre-show. but we did some Critical Role type things in the Natural Ones D&D. Had a lot of fun there. And then having working for Amazon, I had direct access to some really awesome assets for New World. So we did the same thing, content creation, did a lot of lore deep diving into New World. We all went our separate ways for personal reasons. We had daughters going into college. We had professional changes. So we kind of all went our different directions, and I was introduced into Star Citizen. Decided to get back in the saddle about 6 months ago-ish, 5 months, 6 months ago. And now I am the host of the Beyond the Verse Star Citizen podcast. So you can find all things Beyond the Verse. It's Star Citizen BTV, Bravo Tango Victor, on all social media platforms. So thanks for the opportunity to drop all that, Trey. Really do appreciate it. But
I'm going to put that link to the YouTube in chat, right? Meow.
Blessings. Thank you. From a military perspective, I got out in 2017. So 2005 to 2017, I started off in the Army Infantry. So 11 Bravo, went to basic and AIT in the Great Fort Benning. We'll just kind of move on past that conversation.
Liberty.
yeah. So I did that fun Sand Hill experience. It was great times. And I was able to go to the Green and Gold program at Texas A&M University. So Whoop, drop college, whatever.
Do you have those sexy boots?
I do. Not on display.
Yeah, show them. Come on, they need to be up. What are you doing? You got him accessed, right? He's got him in the room with him. Oh man, these boots are on point. I know guys that still wear boots like this in the service,
which is ridiculous. And you're coming from an armor perspective, so yeah, that probably is.
Yeah. Oh, they're in a case. Look at it.
So, like one of these.
Oh my.
Yeah. It's a thing.
Oh yeah. Don't you guys also have the awesome pants that are like wider at the thigh?
So we're gonna move on from this conversation. So when I love it. No, this is not a podcast about my boots and pants. So when I commissioned into actually an armor unit. It was a cavalry unit, and I was able to platoon lead a long-range surveillance unit as a sniper platoon.
Yeah, great.
So really awesome. Had a really great time there, and that opened up the doors to the last part of my career, where I was blessed to be able to end with the Special Forces. So I ended my career as an 18 Alpha with a 19th SF group. I had a really good, awesome conclusion there. Had a lot of work with spooks, so me and Atira probably have a lot to relate to in the next couple hours. But
very good. That was my plan.
We can't talk about it here. We have to go to a skip.
Yeah. That's right.
And we both have to get red on. Both have to get red. Right. You have to get red back on, and I have to get red on at all. Yeah, it'll be fine.
It's been a while since I've had to dabble. So thanks for the opportunity, Trey.
Of course. Glad to have you. And yeah, by all means, everybody check out the Beyond the Verse podcast. I've been following it since the very beginnings. He does a really good job with the show. And so, go give him your support. And of course, I'm Trio 311. I'm former 0311, and 0331 Infantry Marine, from 03 to 07. Did a couple tours in Iraq way back when it really, really, really sucked. And had a break in service. And now I'm a critical care flight paramedic, 68 Whiskey Fox 2 with the Army National Guard in the glorious state of Idaho. So that's what I do. And today, and the reason I picked these two guys out of my stable now of Star Citizen community members and content creators.
Are we your whores now?
Yes.
We're being used, man.
We're being.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but is because I wanted to talk about FPS gear, and not just first-person shooter, but first-person gear, and not only what we know about where CIG plans to go with it, but what sort of information we as players need to take into consideration when we're picking our gear, because and it's been a little while, and I'll share some links in the chat as we get started, but essentially the gist of it is when it comes to your gear, your equipment, it's going to be have a lot more depth to it. And we've been hearing a lot about resource management and components and subcomponents with ships. And a lot of that is going to translate over to your first person gear. When it comes to, ships are, have different different damage types. They're working on those for ammo right now. We already have different damage types for our first person gear. And so that's one consideration. We also have lots of different environments that we have to contend with. They're working on EVA tier 2, and so we know we're not going to have unlimited EVA fuel. So you're going to have to contend with your movement as well. And then there's going to be we have multiple tools already, but there's going to be a lot more tools that you might need to consider bringing with you in order to get the job done, to do whatever the contract requires, whether it's a combat related mission or something more industrial or commercial focused. And so there's a lot of things to take into consideration, and the consequences of not taking those things into consideration in a system like Stanton, where it's like living in the city where everything is a short drive away. We've got all the supplies you could ever need, and if you forget something, it's on you, and you'll lose a couple minutes, but you can just go to a station nearby to grab it. But with the Pyro system upcoming, and it being a much larger system, and with a lot less infrastructure, we have to. The choices you make for your gear when picking your kit, the name of the episode, are going to be a lot more impactful. And in other systems that are even larger than Pyro or have even less infrastructure, we're going to be able to need to have the right information to make the right decisions. Because otherwise, if you get midway through a mission, you get all the way to the objective and you don't have what you need, you're up a creek without a paddle. But you're also going to be limited. Yeah. And we also have limitations in how much inventory space we have, both on our ships and then as players. And so you have to take those things into consideration. So I wanted to bring both an intel officer who is practiced and knowledgeable on, hey, what sort of things, do we need to be looking for? How do we get this sort of information in order to plan for the mission, as well as an experienced special forces officer who knows all about planning missions and what kit you need to bring in order to sort of put some context around all this. And we're going to talk about these things, and we're going to have a little scenario in the second half of the show. But I think it's going to be really interesting. Kel drinking fancy booze, good bourbon, whiskey. Oh yeah, what do you got in your fancy bottle?
Oh, it's a cognac.
Oh, what do you have? Oh, there we go, Woodford. Nice. That's always a winner. Yep.
Where's my thing?
A little bit of free advertising for bourbon.
Mm-hmm. I just have water because hydration.
I also have water.
Yeah,
it's also Sunday at 2:15.
Yeah. So yeah, let's as always when we're preparing for an episode, what we do is we come up with an idea, and then we look for some resources just to sort of guide our thoughts and conversations. And one of the big things that I like to bring this conversation back to is the CitizenCon 2949 video called Armor Archetypes. And there is I'm going to put the link to it in chat. If you haven't watched already, I encourage you to watch it or rewatch especially there's a segment several minutes long with Richard Tyrer where he talks about what their future plans are. And some of those things have already been implemented, at least at a small level. And there's more things that are going to be coming. It's, again, just priorities, but it's important to take this stuff into consideration. And then, we have a few links to things that are on, in development on the progress tracker. We looked at the different tools that, that are in development. And so we look at those things, and then we come up with some questions, kind of like if you watch, the captain's table over on, the Astropub. He always has good questions ready to go to ask the members of the show. And so for part one, we're calling part one, what you need to know. And the first question, and I'm going to ask both of you guys, and we'll just let this sort of happen organically. With what we know about FPS gear, and really, especially in particular, armor, in that there's, we have to, armor is going to have power. like your ship, where you're going to have like batteries on it. They haven't talked about it too much, but that's the plan. And your armor is also going to give off a signature because it has power and it's going to have components that are running. Your armor has limited inventory space depending on what armor you're wearing, both in terms of like your inventory that we have right now, but also the things that you can attach to. Different armors have different life support values in terms of your environmental controls, how much air you have to breathe if you're an EVA or if you're in a hospital atmosphere, how fast or how quickly you can move, and then certain components are going to allow us to have you're going to be able to have a radar system. They're working on that mini map in the radar right now. With these sort of considerations and as well as weapons and tools, what are the, and I'll start with you, Sulyce, and then we'll ask, see what Tyrese says. What are the most vital pieces of information we need to make informed decisions on what to pick for your kit with these sort of things in mind? And let's sort of like keep this grounded in real life, because you've had to pick your kit, you've had to adjust your kit for different things. What sort of things are really important for you when picking your kit?
Yeah. So I think like light and weather data would be the most important piece for me from like an S2 perspective or an intel department. So light and weather, I'll tell why in a second, and any sort of salute report that I'm able to get in advance. So a salute report.
Tell them what a salute report is.
I know. A lot of this will be me explaining what I say. So the size of the enemy, their activities, the location, the uniform that they're wearing, the time that they're doing these executions, and the equipment they're carrying, right? Salute acronym. And then the time and weather data, obviously you're going to want, or the light and weather data, you're going to want to equip your kit with the ability to overcome those obstacles, right? So if we know that there's going to be a dust storm, does it make sense to have night vision? Probably not. You can't see 2 feet in front of you because of the smoke. What kind of night vision? So it's going to be thermo. You're going to go thermo vision. So you're going to have those binoculars as opposed to night vision. So I'm going to want to know the light, the weather, the salute report. And then I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily care about like the medium armor or the heavy armor. So I'll give you 2 responses there. One, so as an 11 Bravo, eventually an 11 Alpha, that's infantry, enlisted infantry officer, like you always deployed to this heavy armor, heavy Kevlar. You had the stupid plate, that would come up on your left side that blocks like your helmet from moving. It's ridiculous. You have all this crap and it made you slower and it made you a meat shield, right? Or a bullet sponge, which all Marines know what that means.
Mm-hmm. Story of my life.
So, but you could do that because you're overwhelming the enemy with size, right? With quantity. You're overwhelming the enemy with a platoon of 40 plus individuals, right? So there's this idea where you could kind of accommodate that. But I don't think the majority of Star Citizen is going to be platoon on platoon warfare, right? I think it's actually going to play more into my Special Forces days. I want light because I want to overwhelm my enemy with violence of action, right? Speed to the target, overwhelming where they don't know you're there until you're dead, right? And that's going to be probably a team of 9 or maybe 10 at most, maybe a squad, right? So the equipment, as far as like the heaviness, that doesn't necessarily concern me. I would want to know utility, how many of what grenade type I can put on, how many chem flares, how many signal, right? Communication is going to be a big deal. I'd rather have a backpack that has comms capability than just can carry a crap load of items. Don't care about the items. I want to be agile, right? The last piece, obviously logistics, how I'm going to get there. The Navy question, the Air Force question. Am I flying in? Or am I getting in via means of ground transportation? And then that would be like my next level of operational planning. Okay, what does that look like? I don't know. And maybe like another like side conversation there is I want to have a most probable course of action or like my primary mission on how to get there. But I'm also going to want a backup plan, right? I'm going to want to coordinate with maybe another organization or maybe have a quick reaction force that's ready to deploy with us, maybe holding up in a Carrack, that has drone support. I'm going to want that on ready. So what kind of backup plan am I also going to establish. So maybe that's a quick answer, maybe that's a long answer, but that would be kind of my first checklist of sorts before I execute.
Mm-hmm. No, very good points. And there are so many things to consider when it comes to all this, and it's really hard to distill it down into a short, 2-3 minute answer, because there's so many different factors that play into this. And I think one thing to consider is when they've talked about how they're going to build missions and with locations and such, and their goals are for players to stick around in a sort of planetary system for a while, and to have enough content within a planetary system to keep you busy for a while before something takes you on and moves on to the next place. And I think that does help in that if you're operating in a planetary system with like maybe like an asteroid field within it and a couple moons, maybe a couple stations or something like that, it helps that not having too many environments of it, within your sort of area of operations keeps your scope of what you have to manage in terms of considerations a bit more manageable, versus if you've got the whole universe, at instant easy access, and it's like, okay, well, now you have to consider everything.
Can I throw one more curveball on that real quick?
Sure. Go for it.
And I'll be fast here, but the Mesa regime and all the dynamics and controversy that came with the Mesa regime. Imagine there being a culture aspect to this as well, like deploying to a planet that they know that they're against the UEE. They're against the military. They don't want a military presence. So maybe you're going in sanitized. Maybe you're going in with like no gear at all, and you're having to use, like, we call it foreign internal defense. What if you're going in and you're having to help the Shion overtake a bunker, right? So now you don't have any gear or anything to take into mission with you. That's a whole nother
infiltration mission. That's more or less the infiltration idea, right? Limited to no gear.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm ideating at this point, but I think that'd be pretty sexy.
That's this entire podcast. It's fine.
No, that's a good point, because they have talked about that for access. If you're trying to gain access, like they've talked about that for like the Pyro space stations. If you're wearing the right things, especially at like a certain distance, they won't recognize you, or they won't say, "Hey, wait a minute, you stop there, or you don't belong here," and that changes things. And that's something that we have. I never did in real life, because I was not super sneaky squirrel. It was but that is a thing. That is the thing. That's how a lot of it's part of being an operator. And that could be something that could gain you access, or at least gain you more access, is the way what you're wearing as far as kit not standing out and looking like a threat. And that's something to consider, because it doesn't always mean armor. You could be wearing plain clothes and carrying weapons in certain areas and fit in just fine. No, that's a good point. Same question to Tira. With what we know about FPS gear, what I talked about, what are the most vital pieces of information we need to make informed decisions? What do commanders ask people like you in terms of like, what I need to know this, I need to know that, in order to be able to plan for the mission and, have the right tools, have the right equipment?
Well, I was going to say Sulyce's comment was nigh on perfect, so screw you, man.
I deserve that. That's fair.
Yeah. You just take all my freaking steam. It's fine. Whatever, man. So instead of corrupting the eloquent initial answer provided, which was, I wouldn't ask for really anything different. As long as you have those elements, salute, light and weather, you're doing pretty damn good as far as information.
Real quick, you want to break down what salute stands for?
He did. I'm not going to be able to do it right off the top of my head. Size, activity, location, uniform, time, right? That the report was taken, and equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm not old. Okay, right, yeah. So, but I'm gonna dial it back into the game a little bit. So you said pretty much light armor, and I would say the only challenge you'll find that we will find with that, and I don't necessarily agree with the concept from CIG, is that you have so few hard points for things like ammunition and equipment, right? You would think as the gear lightens, right? You'd be able to carry more because you yourself you have less heavy equipment on, right? So you can now carry a little bit more equipment with you, things like med guns and additional ammunition. And right, if you have a crew serve guy and he's maxed out on ammo, then you carry ammo for him. Or if they ever give us mortar capabilities and everybody carries 2 rounds, right? But the way they've set it up now is if you're in light armor, you get a light backpack, and that's it. And there's very little capability or storage ability in that to carry the things that you might need for the mission. So I like light armor. It's fine, and it absolutely allows rapid movement, but they reduce the hard point so much for your ability. I mean, everybody's going to be restricted to carrying FS9s so that you have sufficient ammunition to engage on even if it's a short mission. If they have some type of wave-based thing and you can't loot off the dead, you're limited on your logistics that way. And I would say CIG needs to relook that, because you're right. Light armor is, in a lot of ways, eschewed by the community because you can't carry sufficient ammunition on your person to execute a mission. So, I mean, that proves a challenge. But and also light armor doesn't offer a lot of that environmental protection that we were talking about. So we get into the environmental hazards. It's beyond weather, because weather could just be high wind or rain or whatever, but then we add atmospherics specific to Star Citizen. So it's an acid environment, or it's extremely hot beyond, or cold, right? And all that's weather. It's elements of weather, but it's things that we don't necessarily.
The environment.
Yeah, the broader environmental concerns are definitely something that we.
Yeah, they recently talked about radiation damage. Pyro puts off crap tons of radiation. And whenever
light
those
armors
flares come on.
don't offer sufficient protection in most cases. So there's definitely problems with that, and I don't mean the idea that you want to wear light armor. I mean the idea that we don't have sufficient light armors of capability, that maybe they're really expensive because your space is at a premium on this kit, which means that it has to be smaller, of equal effectiveness, which increases cost, right? And possibly maintenance concerns, right? As either gear does or doesn't degrade, however they're going to go with that. So, we need armors that fit that portfolio of mission set that gives us capability to achieve those situations, because otherwise you're always going to be in one of these freaking giant poofy man environmental suits running around looking like a marshmallow, and that doesn't feel sexy, right?
See,
you're
that
like,
just made me think of
Puff Marshmallow Man, right? And we all have machine guns because I can't.
I tried to think of the thing from my childhood that scared me. It was the least frightening.
Yeah.
So I got 2 responses to that. One, you're hitting the nail on the head. I think there needs to be, and I know every developer and publisher from CIG is watching this podcast. So
all of them,
all of them, all at the same time. So I would encourage, and this is for any game, I would encourage them to look at the actual load capacity of an infantryman, a rifleman, right? Like in real life, they can carry 250 rounds easily, right? And that's probably low bar. But that's a low bar, right? But using a web kit, just like your web flick is what we called it. But like your web suit or whatever, you could put so many rounds of grenades, and that's not even armor at all, period. So I would encourage CIG to look at, like, don't diminish our capability on the width or the thickness or the heaviness of your armor, right? I think we need to keep in mind that aspect. The second piece, and I want to take this in a sexy direction here, but when you say like environmental considerations, again, you're spot on. There's no way light armor can handle a lot of that. I just went straight to hit teams. Like, how amazing would it be to drop a Valkyrie like in the middle of like chaos, like Jump Town, but in a PvE world? But drop Valkyrie, just go and explode everything in 30 seconds and get back on, take off. Like, that to me is an amazing loop that I would absolutely love.
If you can survive Jump Down the chaos.
Right.
One thing.
So, good.
With the wait, did you have 2 points? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, he did.
No,
he hit him.
Okay.
I nailed it.
So I think, and there might be a tech.
I'm sorry. Can I add 1 point to him?
Sure. Yeah.
Give armor sets 1 backpack up.
Oh, like the ability to carry.
So if I'm wearing light armor, I can carry a light or medium. If I'm wearing medium, I can be medium or heavy. I got it. Like maybe less than 1% of CIG has ever been in the service, but let me tell you something. We carry some big ass backpacks.
I think the having the option, but with a trade off, like you know, by having that big of a backpack,
it's going to be mobility, right?
Mobility penalty, yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. But the issue is like you usually have some poor mother effer with so much crap on his back, right? And he's slow, but he's got all the goods, man. He's carrying the radio, he's carrying whatever. So I mean, you can have a couple guys that are carrying these heavier packs, right? That are a little bit slower, but they're carrying a bunch of stuff for the team, right? And the bottom line is in reality, we don't carry a light ruck ever. Like it's not in the conventional force. Most times you're carrying a medium ruck, right? Or an assault bag, which is even smaller. It's one or the other, right? It's like an assault bag, which is like smaller than a light ruck, or it's a medium ruck, and there's all kinds of crap in there for the team. So it's it's just take a look at that, because I would love to be able to wear that light armor. But I also want to be able to carry enough sufficient ammunition and also various pieces of equipment to make it worth.
I think that there might be a current tech limitation that I'm sure they could overcome, in that, like, if with your mag pouches on your
value.
They want the magazines physicalized, but they probably don't have the ability to stack 2 mags on top of each other. Like my mag pouches are double mag pouches. I have 2 mags in there. And on our current kit, like, they're stuck to your armor, but there's only 1. And so I think that there's there might be a tech limitation in that they need to address it, so that way you essentially have 2 mags on top of it, because that would double your ammo counts. And I think that would help a lot. But the
standard issue is 3.
Yeah, as a
standard infantryman's
light
infantryman pouch.
Yeah, and
unless he's a Geardo and he's bought all kinds of bullshit to go on his harness.
I had when I was a light machine.
That's right.
When I was a light machine gunner, I had 2 200-round drums on my chest, along with 2 double mag pouches as my back. So I had 400 and 520 rounds on my chest, not to mention I had 2 drums in my assault pack on my back,
counterbalancing all that weight on your chest.
I was a walking gyro. That's what I was. Yeah. No, but you bring up a good point. I think there's probably a tech limitation that they need to solve in order to make that happen. So that because otherwise it would look ridiculous if they just had a whole bunch of mags dangling off of you. But make it so that way they have a way to stack, so that way your light armor, you have like 4 mag slots right there. Well, if all of a sudden you can have 8, and you've got 8 40 30 40 60 round mags, depending on what you're carrying, your SMG versus your rifle, I think that would make it have a lot more realistic and have a lot more staying power. And I hope that they're not artificially keeping it down in order to get us to have to reload from your pack more often. Because while that is a thing, if you're doing mag changes pretty quickly and burning through a good amount of ammo in a firefight, you would it's kind of like the the inverse of what happens with ships right now with ship combat, where the time to death is so short, time to death, time to disable. We need the time to resupply to be extended out a little bit, I think, with FPS gear, at least in terms of ammunition. Now, I think we have usually 2-3 grenade slots on, I forget now. I think that's probably appropriate, but the amount of mags that you can carry seems a little, on the low side.
Agreed.
For me, I think when it comes to the information that I want in order to pick my kit, and I still do a lot of this in my real life job, both on the Army and the civilian side, but it isn't with guns and ammunition now. I need to make sure that I have enough, of this medication or these supplies, for this patient that I'm going to be taking care of. And I only get so much information in the dispatch. So I have to use that information to come up with a plan to say, okay, these are the contingencies that I need to be concerned about. And so I'm going to bring, on top of what they're telling me I need to bring, I'm going to bring this, this, and this as well, just in case. I'm going to bring 2 extra vials of this medication. I'm going to bring 2 extra cylinders of oxygen to make sure that I don't run out. If this patient deteriorates, I only have 2 units of blood. I'm going to bring another cooler full just in case this person starts to rebleed. Those sorts of things are things that I have to consider. And so, but for this, I like the obvious things are definitely the salute report. We want to know where they are, how far they are away from us, how we're going to get there. I think that the biggest thing is I do want to know the environment that I'm going to be operating in, because, as much as having the right protection in terms of ballistics is important, if we can't stay, if we have to insert farther out, over 2 ridge lines out, and you maybe have to hook it for a couple hundred meters, couple thousand meters, something, hopefully not too long because it's a game. You don't want to be doing a couple hour ruck march.
If it was contested, it would be fun.
Yeah. If it's contested, that'd be really interesting. If you're having to fight your way through there. But if we already have this in game where you're in your light armor, it doesn't have a lot of environmental protection, and you're on microtech. Yeah. You're not going to survive that long ruck. But at the same time, do you take the light armor because you want to move, hot and fast, and take the risk of landing closer, or do you take the, are you too worried about anti-air and you need to land farther out? I forget where that falls in the salute, but whenever we would have a mission, like if I was going up to do a raid in Fallujah, from a different province, Intel would be briefing us on what other units had been encountering in terms of what they have to throw at you. And what I would carry with me and how much I would have in my pack would depend on whether, am I getting driven right up to the front door, or am I getting dropped in at the outskirts of the city and I've got a 2-kilometer march, where I'm having to, patrol and potentially fight my way through, because that's exhausting. And if you're having to stop as you're patrolling and fighting your way through, and your character has to drink water, rehydrate, you can only sprint for so long because you're carrying all this stuff, that's going to recharge because it's gamified, but it's something you have to consider, because that impacts your mobility. And
so
having done a lot of those raids.
Can I veer the convo? Can I veer the convo?
Oh yeah, go for it.
So we've talked about atmospherics and what that means for your armor, and it comes back to, in my mind, always components that you can put in your armor, right? And so what would you need if you wanted to wear light armor, powered armor, right? They tell us it's powered. Mm-hmm. What do you need? You need a heating unit.
Yep.
So there needs to be a component that allows you to modify your existing armor, your stock armor, and maybe light armor, because it is light and not heavy, and there are no weight restrictions, actually has a couple of more than the heavy armor. Because you're trading defense, you're gaining modularity. And then as you gain defense, you lose a little modularity, right?
Yeah.
And so you can then add a heating unit to that light armor which then allows you to wear that light armor, move faster across that cold terrain, and then hit that target with lightning speed. They'll never even see you coming.
It's just like the subcomponents on ships. You know, the trade-offs of I can equip this heating unit, but I'm not going to be able to equip the thing that limits my energy signature. And so
we're not going to be stealthy, but
at least it'll be warm.
Energy. You'll be warm and you'll be fast, but maybe they'll have 30 seconds more warning that you're out there.
Yeah,
or be able to detect you farther.
Right. So in a couple of weeks, the expansion of Cyberpunk is coming out. So I just recently started replaying Cyberpunk. This conversation reminds me of the ability to put mods. Like there's slots in your gear that you can put mods in. It might be something as simple. I say simple. I'm sure there's a CIG dev that's like hating me right now.
Simple.
But I'm sure just like adding slots in your inventory that says, hey, this armor has 2 mod slots, and you can choose, warmer, and you can choose maybe, I don't know, higher jumping or more stamina, ways to modify your suit
or heating combined with EM shielding.
Yeah, there you go. Because that's exactly what I was about to say is like, my response to you was like, dude, I'm just going to throw EMPs all day long. Like if I know a hit team's coming after me, I'm setting up my EMPs and I'm screwing your day. Right. Because I know you're in gear that's going to be modified. But yeah, having something to defend yourself against the EMP would be, ideal. But I think that's a good idea.
I thought more along the lines of masking protection.
Right.
So I'm producing more EM because I'm powering this heating unit, but now I've got EM shielding on that now reduces that back to standard. And maybe that's all I've got on there because this is whatever, maybe it's found armor or something. I don't know. It has reduced slots or however you want to do it. I still think more slots for lighter armor, but it balances out then.
Well, and that's how a good way for them to differentiate brands, kind of like how they differentiate ships. Certain ships based off different manufacturers will have more, more component slots, more redundant components, but then certain components on ships will have subcomponents. And I kind of think of your armor as the ship, and we have subcomponents versus 2 levels, but they could just be
components. They're like size 0.5 components or size not even size, because we have size 0, right? So they're size -1 components, right? They just slot in, they do whatever.
And you may want to pay the money for the more expensive military grade, let's get that out of the way, armor, but it has more subcomponent slots for you to have that specialization. Or that's how they differentiate, in the archetypes from that presentation. Your combat specialist from your combat fighter, you don't have as much damage protection from your combat specialist side, but you have more specialization for things like that. For I want to hide my signature. I want to hide, I want to be able to survive, in this environment longer. Those sort of options.
So what you're saying is don't show up to an objective in Drake type armor.
Yeah.
We have Drake type armor, right? We have ratty ass armor,
right?
It's just not manufactured that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just old and falling apart.
Yeah. I had to take a dig.
Huh? Yeah.
I had to dig at my Drake friends. So
we're going to keep this rolling wrong, and then we'll start with the Tira. What in-game methods do we have, or will we have, to obtain this sort of information? What?
Oh gosh, I don't know that we have any outside of a flyover in game. Right? I mean, you can't scan a compound to see how many objectives or how many personnel there are, and nor should you be able to. Right? This isn't Star Trek, right? I can't do a planetary sweep and see the gnat's ass detail of life. There's 2 billion life forms on the planet.
Well, so let me challenge that real quick. It's not live. It's not live. Let's just lay that out. But the Carrack does have drone support. So like in theory, like you could set up your orbital patrol base, or we're going to call it that, but you can set up your Carrack out in the atmosphere and then deploy your drones to at least get eyes on. And maybe
I'm not saying I'm not saying you wouldn't do recon. Absolutely. But again, that's visual.
Yeah.
Right? So right now you can do a flyover in like a light, small, fast ship, you can get a visual. If you're good with a camera, right, and nobody's paying attention, you can get a snapshot of the terrain, right? And you could, in theory, geo-rectify that so that you know what north is and pass that out to your friends. You could grid that up so that you guys have target reference points and a grid system to tell you where things are over the objective. What you don't have, I've thought about this for Ghost Hollow. Not jump down, though, because ammo almost never does jump down. That's chaos. But we should at some point. What we don't have is the stuff I talked about in my very first Soldier's Opinion, reconnaissance, because everything stems from reconnaissance. All operations stem from reconnaissance. You don't go to a place if there's no confirmation that there's enemy there, right? Unless you're invading someplace and it happens to be key terrain and you're actually taking ground, which we don't do in Star Citizen, right? So you don't go to a place if there's no reason to go there. Well, you need to know if there's a reason to go there. So there's signals intelligence, right? And yes, you could push out your Carrack drone or whatever drone, reconnaissance, and pick up signals, right? And remember, it doesn't have to be internals.
No.
It can be just the presence of signals operating at a certain, in a certain bandwidth, right? And that tells you, so if you are going to Ghost Hollow and you're curious, right, if there are players on the objective, you could pull in, send your drones over, listen, right? Yes, I'm getting ship signatures, EM signatures, whatever. They're between this range, and every ship needs to have its own range of spectrum within the EM field, right? Or something like that. There needs to be like a stamp that a trained person or person that puts the thought and energy into it can tell what ship it is based on that signature. Right now, it's just, it operates at this much, and I can detect it. But each ship would have a unique footprint, right? Because it's the shape, the emissions, the wiring construct within it, all of that contributes to that EM signature. And each one is going to be unique for a ship type, and in theory, to the exact ship, which I think is silly. We don't need to go to that detail. But what you would be able to tell is there's a Saber, a Gladius, and an Eclipse. If you can see the Eclipse, if he's visible to you, if you can get close enough, right? And then, right, you know what your threat level is before you even go in. And you can prioritize targets. You can remove targets from the field soon or quickly, right? And then move on with your day. So that is definitely a piece of it, right? And really that's verging into measures and signals analysis, what we call MASENT. But MASENT is really just an amalgamation of all the other ents into... Right. You have to have ELINT and comment to do MASENT. There are a variety of different imagery capabilities that we can do, right? We have what's called synthetic aperture radar. As we get weather, we should be able to look through that weather, right? Now, it makes you scream that I'm here, right? Because you're emitting radiation on the ground to get a picture. But it lets you see through weather, and it lets you pick out other emissions. Those show up like really bright on a SAR image. You've got IR, you can do thermal, you can do EO. Who cares? I mean, EO is like the easiest thing. We have that now. Yep. So all of those things are things that we can do. And then you could do HUMIT, but look, you'd have to get a player to tell you because the NPC is not going to tell you. Yeah. So HUMIT in the game, unless, and I know there are some orgs wholly dedicated to this, right? Like infiltrating other orgs and giving away information about their activities and what they're doing. Yeah. Man, if that's your jam, have fun.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, and it's awesome, right? It's truly interesting work if that's your jam. But you're gonna have to figure a way to advertise that so people come to you for information, right? But you know, HUMIT. But those are the things that you would need to understand an objective truly from an intel perspective, right? You have to be able to see the objective in some way. Yeah. I think one of the things that the mechanics are from a placement perspective, but they're not there from a player facing side, is the little satellite missions where you drop a satellite at some point because the NPCs give you a mission to put a satellite on the ground.
Oh yeah, the research ones.
Right, the research one. I should be able to do that over Jump Town or Ghost Hollow, right? And it's self-powered for X amount of time, or you could buy a more expensive one that has solar that it'll shut down and then power back on, and as it bleeds power, and then I have to be able to access what's being detected through that, right? And then I have to have a means in game, and it all comes back to in game to see what that thing sees, right? Whatever that item is, right? And it can be destroyed, right? You could roadkill it by accident. You could detect it, destroy it.
Yep.
But it's there, and now I can see what's going on at Jump Town, and I can, again, right? Now I have a tool, a physicalized tool in the game that lets me see something below. And then the final thing I'll say is, I know I've been talking a lot. This is my jam, see? All right.
That's why I wanted you to come on, though. I had a plan.
I like tactical stuff too, but I mean, Intel's what I do. But then the other piece of that is that another satellite needs to be put up, unless they're going to give us just a omni navigational system, right? Then you're going to have a way to self-generate one, right? So I understand, like in a civilized place like Terra or Stanton, there may be a satellite network, right? Maybe it's the OMs, right, that generate a nav mesh for the players that gives us the ability to see the compass rose and maybe even give us some type of 9-digit grid. Or 10-digit grid. 9, yeah, that'd be interesting.
That works.
That works, yeah.
Tirakel's making up his own grid system.
I know, it's code. It's all code. 10-digit grid system.
10 digits? No.
Out there.
Yeah,
They'd never get anywhere. I don't understand. So, a 10-digit grid
Tens,
system.
that's for the Europeans. This is America. We're going to do our own thing. It's going to be 9.
We're going to do 9. That's right.
Space America, yeah.
But you go to Pyro, right? And now none of that shit's there, and nobody cares. And so what do you have to do? You have to drop 2 to 3 of these satellites over the planet. They link and give you now over a wide swath of the planet, because it's a damn satellite, right? But some means of navigation. And this comes back to exploration gameplay too, right? One of the first things you would do if you're over a new planet that nobody's ever been before, you drop these things so that you could, wherever you drop, you can actually find your way back, right? And then start, and maybe it helps you map, maybe it helps you do whatever. And then when you go to the next planet, you pick them up, you restore them, and you go to the next place. So it gives a tactical advantage, right? Because you've taken the time. It all comes down to planning. You've taken the time to establish that navigational framework. You now have the compass. You can now call out accurate grids to your teammates, or direction, or however you want to gamify it, so that you can now attack the enemy with some level of accuracy and communicate their location. Because we don't have a ping system. Maybe they create a ping system if you have satellites overhead. And if you're in signal of your own satellites, now you can ping within that area on the planet. And now, right, you could say exactly where a bad guy is, or where you see something. So that's where I'll end. I'm sorry.
No worries. Sulyce, what about you? What in-game methods do we have to gain this sort of information that we need to know to make good decisions? How would that, obviously, compared to what maybe you've done previously, what sort of, do you ever have any light bulb moments when you're like, oh, okay, well, I've done this before. I can just sort of do this in game and make that work. This is how you would gamify something, that you've done.
Yeah, and there are a few games out there that are already doing it, and I first off want to apologize and preface this with an apology, but Call of Duty hits some of the SF stuff square on the head, and I'll address that here in a second. But first piece, to answer the question, what currently exists or what is planned to exist in game to address, we brought up the Carrack, right? The Carrack being at a patrol base, deploying drones to get eyes on an objective. Like, okay, so we know that the Carrack's there. Maybe the Endeavor. I don't know. I don't have a lot of intelligence over the satellite capability of the Endeavor, the piece that you can add to the Endeavor.
Tracker.
But Track. Okay. So yeah. So if maybe there's another purpose of that satellite to kind of do exactly what Atira mentioned, is a mobile satellite, your own
No, I meant
personal
the Hornet tracker.
Well, the Hornet tracker. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, heck, the MSR has the satellite built into the right side, but I think they have the foresight or the vision to have this kind of in game. But when I fast forward to like what I would do, there were missions where we had UAVs, and I'm talking not like the massive like the white. Is my audio on?
No, you're good. You're talking about Predators, Reapers, and Global Hawks.
Okay. Yeah. No, I heard music in the background. It's my bad.
Yep.
But the
That's the OBS.
Got it. So we had unmanned aerial vehicles that we would throw out and control. One of the individuals on our team would control it, and it would be an umbrella. Yes. Yep. It would be like a umbrella over an objective that would be its own little satellite. So there's technology in existence right now, and I've been removed from the military for 6 years now. So I'm going to rely on Atira to correct me if it's changed. But the technology that we were using is actually very close to lacing a target through like a Blue Force tracker or through this unmanned aerial vehicle, where you could take a heat signature and you would lace it, and the communication, it would map that heat signature as an enemy or friendly. And so we would have this vision or this visibility on a heat signature that would be defined as, at the very least, a human body, maybe not Blue Force or maybe not the enemy. But there would need to be some sort of long-range surveillance or some sort of capability where let's deploy as a little team. Maybe it's 9 individuals deploy. We have a UAV that we deploy. We fly it over the jump town and we identify, hey, here's a ship, here's some people. And then this is like a 10-minute thing, right? Okay, in 10 minutes, go execute, right? So we go run, do our thing, come back, and we exfil. So it's less of a concern of like taking a Carrack or an Endeavor to bounce signal off of. I think that might be like a raid. If CIG's considering raids in this game, okay, now I can start thinking more about that deployment. But I think for the tactical execution on ground, that's all we would need is just a UAV, throw out, get visual, lace our target, go execute, exfil, right? I hope that answers your question, but I think that's I think a near-term solution.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right on point. The difference is a lot of what we're doing now is quadcopter based, right? A lot of small stuff. If you ever seen the Black Hornet, it's a $58,000, I think. Or maybe it's $28,000, but it fits in the palm of your hand. Yeah, you can't see it. There it is. Fits in the palm of your hand, right? It's only got like 10 minutes of flight time, but it goes in. It's really hard to see, right? And you get a camera on it. And then we have all manner of what we would call Group 1 UAS that are tiny quadcopters. What you're talking about is little Group 2s that you throw, right? And they go up and they circle, and they have a little bit of legs on them, more so than a quadcopter. And then what I was talking about was the bigger stuff for like Group 3 and up, right? So Group 3 being something like a Shadow UAS, which is now we're on Block 3 of the Shadow program. By the way, the Shadow is still made of plywood.
Oh no.
Yeah. We haven't
only the best
progressed beyond plywood yet.
At least it's not balsa wood, like the little gliders you buy at the hardware store.
And then Group 4 is your Predators and your Reapers, and your Group 5 is things like a Global Hawk, which is like the size of a full-size airplane. But that's what like battalion commanders and up are looking for, and absolutely what you're talking about is what company commanders and below are looking for.
Exactly.
So starting small CIG.
Hint.
Absolutely start with that little tiny backpack. I can pull it from my backpack, put it in my hand, and then like release it, and a little remote comes up, and I can fly it, and I can see
a really good cost benefit decision in your planning is, hey, do I want to bring this drone, which takes up a significant portion of my backpack space,
they're man portable, but they do take up space.
Yeah. And
that's really good.
And have that, or do I want to bring something else? Or, hey, this one guy carries this, but we got to make sure that we keep him up on ammo or anything else that he needs, and have other people carrying that in their kit, if they're wearing packs. And this is great because they are like the work for drones for players to be able to pilot things remotely. Has already been done for Squadron. They did that work. They mentioned in the monthly reports in the first couple ones of this year, where they used it in order for a player to control like a crane thing. But it's also, they said in the monthly reports, this is also what the same interface that you're going to be using, the same tech that you're going to be using to pilot drones. And whether it's a drone from your Vulcan or a drone from a little backpack thing, just like we've had in Call of Duty and Battlefield for years now, same tech, they have the tech. And then the other part of that is the render to texture system, which is what allows us for something that is visualized from somewhere else in the game universe to be put onto a screen for you to see. That's what render to texture does, and that tech has been in the game for ages. Now, is it broken and buggy as shit?
It's
yes,
not great,
it is.
But yeah,
but the tech is there.
So, but I will say though, CIG, this is not a standalone backpack that replaces your backpack.
Yeah,
this is a thing that goes in your backpack.
It takes up this many blocks in your backpack.
Yeah,
and you've only got 2 blocks left. Yeah.
Do not make people choose between additional ammunition and medical and food and water, or some crappy UAS, right? Because they're going to choose food and water every time, right? Just
Lickies and
it's a
chewies.
thing. It takes up like a small one, guys. Look, a small one is like I can't even. It's like a foot by a foot.
Yeah.
Right. And they fold. Yeah. So I mean, they're small. They can easily go in, and then you just pack stuff around it, and then you pull it out when you need it.
I love the last comment in chat. Great. We just added a decade to development.
Well, and that's the thing is we're talking about this, but this is already stuff that they're working on. Like the tech to make it function, it's already in Squadron. They're already developing it as part of other things that are planned for the game. It's just a matter of retooling it a little bit so it's because essentially what this would be is this would be a deployable device. But instead of deploying it onto a surface, you'd be pulling it out and deploying it into the air, via some sort of animation or something. But it's definitely within the realm of possibilities. That would be a really great tool, and I think it's something that we need, and I hope that they will work on that sooner rather than later. I like how, Atira, you were talking about the human stuff, because you can gamify the hell out of that. And not gamify as in like it's something you do in game. You can literally just hop in general chat and be like, hey, I've got this mission to go do a raid, and it says that it's this pirate faction. Does anyone know? Has anyone gone up against these guys? Does anyone know what they're using? Because people will be like, oh yeah, they had these weapons. Or
they'll just sit on that objective and wait for you.
Yeah.
Or the idiot that's like, hey, I'm headed to Jump Town. Anybody want to come with me?
Is Jump Town safe? Yeah.
But you're right. Yes.
Is it reliable?
Or
within your own org?
In the back of my mind, I was thinking you could monitor general chat, right, for human intelligence, right? You can sit and watch the stream, and if somebody's being a d-bag over Olisar, not to go to Olisar, because somebody's going to be screaming about it in the chat, like, Johnny just shot me down and I was just trying to get gas, right? So that is absolutely human, right? Yeah, and you could put out false information to generate a response as well, right? And then watch and see what happens. Those are all things that you can do. But yeah, I mean, humans just tough in a video game, right? So
the other thing we need, and I'm hoping that that's one thing that's been bothering me for a long time, is they haven't shown us the new star map. They've done all this work, and they're building this grand new star map and the internal map and the mini map and all that stuff, and they haven't shown it to us. But that's one of those features where we need to be able to look on the star map, and as long as a planet has been scanned and explored, you should be able to zoom in on the planet, but then also click on a region. So say we'll use Microtekken as an example, and it has different biomes, and each biome essentially has pretty much a almost soft border. But you should be able to, when it comes to the environmental factors, you should be able to click on that and be like, okay, this is the temperature range, that that it has within that area. This is the and for this planet, this is the atmosphere of it is whatever it is. This is the radiation level that you can expect. Do I have to worry about radiation poisoning as the atmosphere is picking up? Those sort of things should be yeah. so what I'm describing is the Starfield map. Yeah, exactly. Please, for the love of God, give it to us. But that's something that should not only be information that is available both within the star map, but also the Galactopedia is going to be accessible in game. And
assuming it's settled.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
it's settled,
the player who discovers it now has to get back and upload that information.
Yeah, and it might be you might not do some high level scanning to look at the target site in order to get the layout and see how many people are there. But maybe part of your planning, maybe it's not a combat mission. Maybe you're just going down there I want to do some mining in this area because I got a lead that said that there's this available in this region. I want to go looking for it. Well, before you go mining there, maybe you just want to do a high flyby over the planet and scan that region just to get that basic bit of information that if you didn't have that, you wouldn't bring the right FPS gear to go do some hand mining. That might be, that might be one of those things where you don't have to do all of the detailed information. You don't have to get a full-on salute report, but maybe this is all you need in order to, for this type of job. But the drones is something that we're going to have for ships. The same tech will be used, would be used for doing first person drones with the render detector system and the control system. So I think that's definitely well within the realm of possibilities. We do really need to have good information available to us from the star map, easily accessible in order to be able to just click on regions and say, oh, okay, if it's this cold, this or whatever, then I need to have this much environmental protection or this type of environmental protection. But then a lot of the in terms of OPFOR, that's going to either be like you guys said, putting eyes on. How are we going to put eyes on? And if this mission is a long ways away, and if we aren't able to readily put eyes on from them, we're in Stanton, they're in Pyro on Pyro 3 or whatever, we can't readily put eyes on, and so that's where you're going to okay, what's our next best bit of information? Maybe we aren't going to be able to get a head count, but maybe we can get some human that says, this is what
they've already said they're not going
to
do cross-system missions like that, though.
Oh yeah, we're going to have
cross-system. Like, I need you to go do something in Pyro for me.
They've talked about it specifically for bounty.
Going to do that.
They talked about it specifically for bounty hunting.
Bounty hunting is one thing, but like you think they're going to have us do bunker missions from Stanton into Pyro?
I think that there's for a lot of missions that there's going to be, hey, you need to go here and either get this, like that's why we'll get to it. But like the rescue mission is a really good example. The mission isn't complete just because you remove them from the environment. You got to take them somewhere, and these people are going to want to be taken back to Stanton or something like that. And that's where the missions get interesting. But if you if you don't have feet on the ground to get this sort of information directly, you have to use your next best source, or that goes into your planning of, okay, well, now we're going to bring more kit that we probably won't need when we get there, but we do have limiting factors of how much space do we have to bring these things. That it makes your decisions a little bit more difficult if you aren't be able to get, because I don't think we're going to have drones that we can fly. I don't think we should have drones that we can fly from one system to another in order to do the Global Hawk equivalent, but for Star Citizen. But,
how would you maintain the signal?
Yeah.
Through jump point.
But yeah, we do need to be able to take these things into account if you're operating across systems, and maybe that's something that you take the risk and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to operate out of Pyro. Okay, well, that's dangerous too. And it's all this, balancing act of, in terms of, what factors come into making these decisions, and then how do you weight things personally? because Sulyce, your priorities are probably going to be very different than my priorities. Some people are going to be more cautious. Some people are going to be more aggressive. Some people are just going to be like, hey, you know what? I don't care about making a profit, on this mission. I just want to get the job done. I really just need the reputation. And so we're going to take the biggest ship with a ton of inventory space, and we're going to pack it to the gills with a whole bunch of stuff that we're not going to need. And then we're going to get there and be like, oh, well, that was overkill, but, at least we were ready. And some people are like, no, I don't want to spend that money. I don't want to take that time to do all the, all right, we're going to lay everything out here and then pack it all up and, put it on the ship, and some people are going to be, I'm just going to wing it, and some people in between.
And that's a very good point, because I think the three of us and most people listening, watching are probably thinking like ideation, how sexy can we make this? How realistic can we make this? When there's some people who only have 15 minutes to play. Exactly. Right? Like all they have time is to jump in, do something, and jump out. They probably don't have time to plan a map reconnaissance in order to take over an objective. So maybe what we're talking about is more raid level, almost like, a dungeon or a trial in, some of these MMOs.
That's a really good analogy for it.
Yeah. And we're talking about what you need this for is, your extreme high risk, your high risk.
Exactly.
Missions,
yeah.
Right. Which
you're,
we don't
you're low
really
and
have.
you're
We have some bunker progression.
Mm-hmm.
We have bunker progression, but it's not. It's not really. I mean, that you can 9 times out of if you're dismounted, you can approach that bunker without worrying. Right? You land on the other side of a ridge, you can walk in. There's no threat to you. There's no threat to you until you go down the elevator. Yeah. Right? And now there's a threat to you. So, and even then, it's usually about 10 dudes per wave. Maybe
it's really
more.
Essentially one floor. It's really one level. Yeah.
So before we go too much further though, can we talk about the specific things? Because I wrote down some things that I think we're missing from armor as far as mods go that I think would help us with kind of what you're talking about. I can't say your name right because it's hard. Sulyce?
Sulyce, yeah.
Sulyce,
like without a soul.
Sulyce. Oh, I can say Sulyce. Because I am one. Okay. So we know they're going to work on.
How many do you have? Do we need to do a pick your top 3 wish list?
No, I have 5.
Okay. We'll do a pick 5 your wish list for armor subcomponents. And
I know
while
we're
he's
going
going,
in the second hour,
so let's think of
and
yours.
We're going to need. We're going in the second hour, and I know we're going to have to change topics at some point to weapons, which we haven't done yet. So we know they're going to do vision mods. So I'm just going to. Like eye or thermal EM. So I'm going to say we know that's coming. They want to do it. Okay. Binos. Dear God in heaven, give me something other than inner thought zoom in on the mouse wheel. So give me either a built-in helmet integration that gives me magnification as a part of the helmet. And give me handhelds. So if we're not in armor, we can use it. I think there's value add for something like a personal shield. If I can make so for those light armors, I think as an idea, high EM output, but you could have a personal shield that gives you a couple of bullets to get in cover before you start taking damage. I think that's a relevant thing we're missing from. I mean, the technology exists. It just has to be made in such a micro level that it works on equipment. And maybe it serves as like a backpack attachment, right? Or it could be an armor hardpoint attachment, right? That is powered. And the last thing I'm going to say is laser designation, specifically for armor. So you could have a handheld, right? Or you could have it built into your visor, right? So that you can laser designate targets for either torpedoes, missiles, or bombs. I think that is definitively critical. We got to get away from dumb bombs, right, being the only solution to a problem. And also bombs should
I'm
not
playing
destroy
Star
bombs.
Citizen, not War Thunder.
Well,
we're also 900 plus years into the future.
In the future.
We should at least have what we already have.
Yeah,
Placing targets is a thing already. So,
and in the next level beyond having a handheld that lets you laser target is to have it built into your harness, right? Yeah. And it may be again, a component of your armor that you put in specifically that allows you to do that. But if you know you have that support available, and your mission is to destroy X, or you're going into jump turn and you just want to destroy everything precision on that objective, and you don't have, I mean, you could have an A2, but you know, maybe you just have an A1, right? And you want to destroy that target with precision. So you look at it, you laze it, you have to hold that, right? Because it's a beam rider, and now, right, that bomb will adjust its course regardless of where it's dropped from the operator, who's also trying to not get shot down, and it strikes that target. And that comes back to also, technically all bombs in Star Citizen right now are high drag munitions, right? Right, which we called in Vietnam, they were retarded munitions, right? You had the snake eyes with the fan comes out on the back and it slows the munition down. So one, it doesn't slow the damn munition down enough, right? Because if you're too low, it'll blow you up, and that's specifically what it's not designed to do, or what it's designed to not do. But you could start to do high altitude bombing with accuracy, and you wouldn't need it to be a high drag munition. It could be a precision guided terminal velocity munition, right, for precision, which increases for the prepared team on the ground, and with proper close air support, right, they can now drop a precision munition with low risk to the pilot, who can now escape, and you can generate effect on the battlefield, which would be far superior to what we have now, right, which is just pull the trigger and hope you're on target, right, with a circle that's like this big. So okay, those are my three things.
All right, Sulyce, what?
I'll be fast.
Yeah, what your top three subcomponents for your armor?
Well, so some of them fall into tiers. So I'll do three new ones, and I'll be very, very, very fast. So map traversing, like on-ground map traversing. I want to be able to hit the ground and open up a map, which I think is in production right now. But open up a map and plot my course going to the objective and establishing a black gold plan, right? An exfil.
Ooh, especially with an AR marker on your HUD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
so right now
it's be looking at it. I want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly, because right now it's chaotic, right? Right now I'm hitting M and it goes to the entire freaking system. I have to double click on the smaller system. I have to go to the planet. I have to find out where I'm going. But even then, it doesn't give me cardinal directions when I'm boots on ground, right? So like the map.
You're lucky if it zooms in, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast, I think. But yes, so planning like traversing on a map, I think is huge too. Personal compass kind of ties into it. I want to be able to like play the game and know which direction I'm going when boots on ground, right? I want to know that ridge line is actually at 120 degrees, so I know my exfil is going to be 180 opposite, right? Last but not least, I'm sorry, Starfield fans, like we need a jetpack, like 2953. And we don't have jetpacks. Like we don't have a way to like, I don't know, fly to a high location when we're on ground. That to me kind of blows my mind. Like I want to get to a high point in Juptown to be able to get a good azimuth or a good sniping position. It doesn't exist right now. There's no jetpack.
We have them now.
In Star Citizen?
No, in real life.
Real life.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm all right.
We have big fat ugly ones now that work.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You're telling me they're not 900 years from now? We don't have something smaller and effective?
Yeah. So I know it's heavier. I know it's something to consider with equipment, things that we've been talking about for the last hour and a half. But it just, I think, again, like you said, 900 years in the future, I feel like that'd be like a very basic thing that we would have at this point.
It would also facilitate air insertion of infantry.
Yep.
Because they told us they've already told us they don't want to give us parachutes, right? So you're going to have to give us something that allows us to drop out the back of a spacecraft, aircraft. Sorry,
I got you.
And free fall down and not die.
Yeah, not splat.
Because that's really the preferred method of insertion.
Yeah.
So the ship never has to stop.
Right. Then I would vote for the Valkyrie as being a top ship in the game.
Aha, yeah. That would be
any drop ship for that matter.
Especially being, stand up, buckle up, shuffle to the door, do that whole deal.
Oh man, can you imagine the role play opportunities? Oh God, it looks so good. It would look good.
Mm-hmm. So mine are actually pretty simple. I want my goddamn backpack to be able to function as a hydration bladder. I don't want to have to take off my helmet to drink some flippin' water, or even have a snack. I want to be able to hook this up in my backpack, and it goes into a tube into my helmet, and I'm able to suck on a flippin' straw. So that way, if you're just walking around, you can carry some food or drink in your backpack. But if you're on patrol and you're in a hostile environment, you should be able to have the subcomponent on your armor or in your backpack or whatever that this hydrates you, or you're able to take nutrition off of it, and this will keep you at peak condition for X amount of game hours or game time. The other thing, and this is, to me, it's peak sci-fi, and it's something that's been in a lot of books that I've read, that have where your Space Marines are wearing powered armor, not necessarily like giant hulking powered armor, but it's you have your armor and your suit, and it has functions beyond just providing ballistic protection. I think our armor and suits should have a subcomponent where it's almost like it's something that's been in Call of Duty before, where or other shooter games, an auto revive system, where I am downed, my suit is able to detect that I am in shock and have lost bleeding, and it automatically injects a single medipen in you and gets you back up. And so you don't have to have somebody jab you with it. You don't have to jab yourself because you're downed. You can't jab yourself, but it allows you to get back up. But it's got one charge, and that's a component. It takes up a slot that you can't use on something else. But if you get downed, and that way somebody isn't your medic isn't having to run across cover to get you and get you up. It does it automatically. But that's your one, and you can't easily like recharge that system or reload it. The other, and then oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. I think the other thing is, and I'm not a stealth person, but I know so many people like things doing stealthy, and I think as we get into these emission systems and FPS radar and scanning, which is on the progress tracker right now, they demonstrated it last year, is there's going to be plenty of times in missions where you can go in guns blazing, but you might want to do the whole Splinter Cell thing and not get detected, and that's good gameplay. Lots of people love that stuff, and the enemy may have the radar and scanning, FPS radar and scanning module, but if you've got the counter to that, which is the thing that hides your armor or your suit's signature, okay, you don't show up, or you don't show up unless you're within this distance, and that's the counter to that, and you just know that you have to maintain a certain distance between them, or as long as you're a certain distance where you have things between you and them, it's now you can't carry something else, it takes up that slot, but it's worthwhile because it allows you to stealthily infiltrate. And they've talked about stealth with the underground bunker things. If you've got that, and that reduces your whatever signature your suit wears, I think that would be really great to add a lot more depth to the gameplay, especially if I've got a 4-man team and we have to do this objective and the target is just surrounded with bad guys, but I know that I can sneak in there from this avenue that maybe they aren't guarding as heavily, but I just have to make sure that I'm not detected. Okay, well, in order to give myself this extra insurance to make sure that doesn't happen, everybody's equipped with this. Or maybe one guy gets equipped with this in order to do some sort of flank, or to get around in order to gain access, that sort of thing. So I think we've covered a lot in this first segment, and we're already like an hour and a half in. But part of that was the intro. So the second segment is, and we've covered some of this, but I wanted to put these sort of things and what we've been talking about into the context of a scenario. And so I wanted to make this scenario sort of very believable in terms of what CIG is developing right now, what they're working on right now, and how we can sort of how this sort of planning and this thought process factors into things that are planned to be in game, are in development. We will likely see quite soon, and they're going to be different than what we have already. So here's we gotta basically, this is what pops up in your mission manager app, and you and your org or your team are in Stanton, and you have one of the new rescue missions, and personnel transport and rescue missions are on the progress tracker. It's on the roadmap. One of the things they've been waiting on was the AI tech for buddy and follow behaviors, which are being developed for Squadron. But one of the new rescue missions, and I think that with a lot of the missions, we're going to have scaling just like we have with bounties now. And so let's just say it says you and 4 friends have just gotten enough reputation to undertake your first mercenary HRE instead of HVT. It's HRE, high risk extraction, from the new rescue missions. The prisoners are being held at an old planetary outpost controlled by a local pirate gang, and so we've seen all the work on all these new outposts that they're putting in Pyro, and whether it's the colonialism ones, but there's the outlaw variants, and then there's the regular outpost ones, the non-outlaw ones. And so we've seen imagery of what those look like. And so we have a location. We know that they're being held here. That's how the mission was generated. Somebody was able to get the information back to this mercenary guild to say, hey, they're being held here, but they're being guarded by a bunch of pirates. And so they're going to put this mission out on contract, just like the bounty hunter guild would. So first question, beyond the very basics of what we've given to you, and let's say it's on Pyro 3, and you're able to look on the star map. We know where Pyro 3 is. We know where this outpost is because it was on a map at a while back, and the person reporting back told you where it is. But beyond that, Atira, what do you want to know before you step off on this mission, before you start getting everybody together?
Well, at a minimum, I'm going to want to know what the approach looks like. So everything, basically the intel picture around that site, right? Activity levels. I need to know who the enemy is, right? And I think in Pyro especially, that's going to be important because...
So what gang is holding them?
Yeah, what gang, right? Because I think they're going to customize those gangs fairly extensively. They'll have either specific weapons or tactics or ship capabilities, right? So what's overhead, what's on the ground, do they do routine patrols? I hope, dear God, by the time Pyro comes out, they have surface nav mesh, right? So that allows me to, there is surface nav mesh, I will say, yes, for things like the oh gosh, I was doing it today, relic hunting and stuff like that. But they don't put it around the bunkers or facilities, right? So these guys aren't going to keep a damn high-risk target like in a shitty, dilapidated, crappy, barely strung together freaking facility. They're probably going to have them in some type of legitimate holdout or bunker facility. Yeah, so if we have an internal layout, I don't want to know that. Then I can at least make some speculation on where I think they're going to be held. And typically, I'd want to know general numbers assumed on the objective, if you can even know that. I think once the mission's been done 4 or 5 times, people are going to know exactly what to expect, right? Because these are all repetitive missions. But CIG could introduce some variance into that to make it a little bit harder. Do they have ground vehicles available? Do I have to deal with that? How much overhead do they have, right? So, and that's before I even talk about, light data. I don't know. Yes, it's important. It's critical, but in Star Citizen, we jump from one side of the planet to the next constantly. So I guess, can the system tell me what if it's night or day as a part of the mission giver? I would like that. I don't know that they're willing to do that, so I might just have to wait and find out about that until I'm quantum drive around the planet and find out.
That needs to be something that when you plot your route to a certain location, it should be able to give you the information of, hey, is this in daylight now when I get here? If I engage this route now, what time will it? What will the planet's rotation look like?
Yeah. I mean, that would be good. And then weather. I mean, Pyro 3, right? Reasonably habitable, right? No, not at all. I can't remember.
It's not. It's
not
habitable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
well, that was
that's
I used
key.
Pyro 3 as the example because that was the one that they showed us in the CitizenCon demo from 2021, and so and habitability can vary too. Yeah. So until they really update
the
us.
Yellow Moss planet, is that what it is?
I could have
swore
that's one
that
biome.
But I could have swore that there was an outpost on that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so yeah, habitability. Do I need, I assume eventually if an atmosphere is truly toxic or poisonous, they'll have filters for your armor that you have to wear. Or like something to reinforce your seals, something along those lines, because you're gonna end up, your suit's gonna take damage just from being in the atmosphere. But yeah, so environmentals, that's what I'm going to need. It's the same thing that we talked about before. I mean, all of those same things are what we're going to need for this mission.
Yeah.
So that's it. Far less articulate than your initial rundown. So Sulyce. So just flip back to the front of the video. That's what we need. The very articulate breakdown of what we need for an objective.
Sulyce, what about you for this particular mission? Before you say you're in Crusader and you're based out of, we'll elaborate on this a little bit more. Say you and your team are based out of the new Seraphim station, long live Port Olisar. But before you step off, what do you want to know before you leave?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do the obligatory, just go back to the beginning of the podcast and then repeat what Atira just said. So light weather data, salute reports, the ground-to-air capability, right? How up armored do I need to bring my gear and my people? But I think the interesting add that I would do to this, and this would come from somebody like Atira, I would want to know the enemy's MPCOA, the most probable course of action upon coming in contact, right? So what are they going to do? Are they going to hold up and fight until the death? Or are they going to have an exfil plan? Are they going to run the moment we start firing? That's going to change my behavior. If I know that they're going to run the moment they hear a gunshot, then I need to split up my team or I need to be quick, right? So light armor, right? Some faster, hitting items. So I would want to know like the most probable course of action, and that also ties into the enemy's black and gold plan. What are their possible exfil options? Because I want to set up probably a secondary team to round up the fatal funnel, right? So I think I don't want to belabor it too much. I think that's probably my quick answer to it, but we've already tapped the priorities of fire before.
I think also that's really dials into like the specific gang. And then if you know the gang, you know what their trends are for behavior.
Good pull.
And that can help you predict that most likely course of action, right? And CIG it's just a random percentage chance, right? So you have behavioral standards, right, that they've built into each one, bravery levels, right? Gosh, I mean, that's the big one that's going to matter here. Tactical competency, are they a veteran? Are they a rookie? Are they elite, right?
Yeah. Are they aggressive? Are they going to push you? Are they going to hunker down?
Right. Yeah. Or defensive, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have each gang. I mean, they're going to be varying levels of aggression. Aggression mixed with cowardice is really just a dog that barks a lot. Yeah. Right. So you can absolutely have like one gang that's all bark but no bite. But every now and again, you have like a 10% chance that they're going to fight like mad. And that's when you're like, hey, we're in most dangerous. Roger, do this, that, and the other. Actions on objective, flank right, do whatever you need to do, right, to gain control of the situation. But you know, based on the traits that each of these gangs naturally kind of tends towards, because there's one, right, that they don't know whether they're outlaws or they're vigilantes, right?
Yep.
And they're smaller, but they're very tactically proficient. And if
Mhm.
you're stupid enough to go against those guys, they're like Sulyce, right? They're like operators
Yeah,
who
the overlords.
are
Thank you, guys.
apparently, right, they're not criminals necessarily, or they're criminals who used to be professional soldiers. And so they're a lot more dangerous threat, even though there are fewer of them, than one of these other organizations that might just be criminals that recruit from the criminal population, and they are going to have a wild variety of recruitment base.
Yeah, it's
that
going
would
to
help you
impact
drive.
it's going to help it's going to impact what their traits are, but also what sort of tactical behaviors and tactics that they use. Are they going to be are they more weighted towards pushers? Are they going to do flanking maneuvers? Are they going to hunker down? Do they like to use emplaced weapons or something? Because these are these things, the priority based systems that they're building into these traits are going to impact how they're going to act, but also can impact what equipment they're carrying. And so that's the more you know about the dusters or the fire rats or whoever, you could just read the little blurb that's in the Galactopedia about them. But if you dig into it more, you talked about other people who have gone up against them. Maybe you've done other missions against them before, but it was medium risk, and it's like, okay, so this was the baseline for medium risk, and so we can expect this at a high risk extraction. Those are the things that I think you're really going to want to consider. And then I prefaced it by saying, hey, we're operating out of Seraphim because we can't easily get eyes on to the target. But if someone else has been there, we may be able to find out, hey, it's gamified, and it's or even out of gamified. Maybe somebody has streamed this mission before. That's a valid intel source to say, oh, okay, I can see somebody flying over it. I can see sort of what the layout is. Maybe if I look closely enough, I can see like what the because gamers always have these sources, and there's going to be, and so do you want to go into the mission blind, or do you use these outside sources to plan for the mission and be like, oh, okay, well, this location, based off the mission can say, because a lot of these things will have variables, and maybe this time when the mission spawns, there's 3 anti-air turrets. Sometimes it's 1, but that based off of this external wiki that there's 1 to 3 anti-air turrets, or there's never no one's ever experienced any anti-air, or sometimes they will there's probability I've never the people reporting back, no one's ever experienced them getting reinforcements or other missions based off of the faction. They will this mission will spawn reinforcements, and or has a chance to. Those are the sort of things where it's not realistic in terms of like you doing it in game, but it's a process that to me is realistic, and it's something that gamers are used to in order to play the game smarter. Because if you don't do those sorts of things, if you don't spend the 5, 10, 15 minutes Googling it or whatever, looking things up or talking to other people, asking in general chat, asking your org, then you step off from Seraphim, and maybe you don't bring enough. Maybe you should have brought more people. You should have waited to not take the mission. Maybe you needed to bring different equipment or a different ship. So those are the sort of things that I would like. Me personally, I would want to know. So like the second,
I think when
question,
when they generate the mission, though, they need to set that course of action. They need to give the enemy the priorities they're going to give.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we know that they're going to have X amount of personnel with X amount of stats, we then weight it towards that most likely, and you set this is what they're going to do. We don't know that as players, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the mission knows that when we get there, when we drop, right, they're going to, either be overcome with fear, and they're not going to be they're going to be shooting up above their heads, and they're not going to be doing anything accurate. They're going to be worried, and they're going to be easy prey. Or they're going to be super aggressive. They're going to be breaking cover to get good aim. They're going to be doing appropriate leans around cover. They're going to try and flank you, all of that. All of that should be set, and it should be, I mean, every gang is going to have the potential to be hyper aggressive and really push you hard. But the percentage of that mission type spawning, right, and the game giving you that particular percentage of variance is going to be different for each gang. And I think that is then going to open up. I have no idea what's going to happen on this mission. I have to prepare for the most dangerous, right? Because that's what we do. We plan for most dangerous, and we try to execute against the most likely. But we have to have, that's what the reserve's for, right? It's for when the most dangerous freaking kicks off. You have a way to account for that behavior, right? Because if you don't, you end up in a lot of trouble. Reserve can also be used to exploit success, right? But in reality, if most dangerous kicks off and you get pinned down and you get in trouble, you have a reserve force that can come in and beef you up, right? Now, that's a lot of players. I don't know that it's relevant. Well, I mean, it should be relevant. It should be relevant to Star Citizen, right? You shouldn't be going into a extreme high risk extraction in Pyro without probably 5 people minimum for success. You just shouldn't, right? I mean, they should make it that challenging. It should make a difference, right? Because we're not John Wick in the game, right?
Nope.
So, just something to think about.
So
I feel like the majority of people are going to play that way, though. Sorry. See,
yeah,
the majority of people are going to go in John Wick and.
Oh, you know, he's in the chat. Ghost. I see Ghost go running into bunkers like it's freaking Crazy Train, and I'm like sitting way back, leaning around a corner, like shit. Where are they? Fuck, man, I know they're there.
Well,
right? Because
the game
anytime
allows
I
us
do
to
that, I
do
get
that.
headshot.
Yeah,
I get
the game
headshot
allows us
immediately.
to do that now, and that's not always going to be the case, you know. And so some people are going to learn things the hard way. You know,
he's a good player anyway, but like I have been headshot too many times when the server like tick rate increases right when I walk in the room. Yes. And they're all freaking snipers. So now I'm slow when I go into a bunker, and I see guys just go flying in. Eventually, that will be unviable, and it should be unviable.
Yeah, especially for
fun. It's a good
challenge,
missions. Right?
But you might get away with it with low risk, you know, the low risk version of these types of missions. But you know,
and good players might get away with it with much higher. But it's definitely one of those things where, like, you know, light armor is the name of the game. You want to be a little bouncing bunny flying around the objective, because the moment you stop, you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it is a game.
So Sulyce, so you have this mission. You have to extract, let's say, 2 hostages from this outpost, and I put the pictures of the outpost in chat just as an example. It's kind of the ones that we've seen, and it's in our resource document, and I'll put the link, the pictures in there again. But let's say we've gotten an image, you know, one way or another. We were able to get sort of a high up image of the size of the outpost, you know, and you know, we know that somewhere in there, we don't have a layout, but somewhere in there is where they're being held, you know, and we've gotten good information. You know, this is the Dusters, and we know how they're going to operate. You know, we have a good idea of what sort of equipment they're going to carry, and now we have an estimate that we've been able to visualize that there are anywhere from 6 to 10 pirates on the ground visible at any given time. You know, for you, based off of your gameplay style and what you like to do with your people, how are you thinking you want to outfit you and your team? You know, there's 5 of you total. You know, you and 4 people.
Yeah, with an application in real life. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
sure.
yeah.
Well,
So
with real life, but also, you know, this is a year, 2 years from now, you're doing this, you know, and this is going to be A, the way you want to get it done, but B, the way that's going to be most fun. You know.
Yeah, so I'll just do like a fun little plug here, but like conventional army says, 3-to-1 fire to superiority, right? So 3-to-1 fire to superiority. If I know that there's 6 individuals, I need 18 star citizens to come with me. That's probably not scalable, nor is it how I'm going to probably play this game. So the funny like thing that we say is like a squadron can take over a like a post, right? But a special forces team can take over a country. And so there's a part of me that kind of would approach it in like the way we set up our teams. So a special forces team is 12 individuals, right? You've got your lead, which is either your officer or your warrant officer, master sergeant, whatever. You have your weapons, engineer, your medics, communications, and your intel. So I honestly would either go in with 6 or 12. And I would more than likely take in 6. But with that makeup in mind, I want somebody to blow the cell or blow a wall. So I want my engineer, right? Obviously, I want my weapons individual, right, to be running and gunning. A medic if things go awry, right?
Wait,
Comms.
are you asking for a destructible environment?
Absolutely. So there's another 10 years in development. But even if they
20.
But even if they wanted to make like the gel cell, right? Destructible, if you will, or maybe the lock on it destructible. Okay, maybe you need a medic in order to do it, right?
You need your cutting tool. You need somebody.
C5. I need a brick of C4 just for the
whether
lock.
it's a breaching charge or a cutting tool, somebody who's equipped with breaching tools. Yeah, that's what you're getting at.
Right, exactly. Now, communications for everything that we just spoke about in the last hour and 45 minutes, communications to like keep the comms with whoever the commander is, or needing to communicate location or success or backup if needed. Like I need that guy or girl to be able to communicate that piece, and then I want to spook with me. I want Inatira, like an intel guy with me, so that if I need to go in under dark, if I need to go in darkness to start cutting corners and maybe taking out some of the security elements, I want that intel guy. But like, give me 6 and I can probably take over an entire point. But I'll probably need 12 in order to take over an entire, let's say, mining facility or an entire jump town. So that's personally how I would play this, and that's kind of how I would equip each one of my individuals. But it's everything that we've been talking about. I'm going in quick. I'm not going to sit there and like, I don't know, map out and do a bunch of reconnaissance. Like, hopefully I got that intel before dropping. But yeah, we're going in with light gear. We're going in with probably just enough ammo to execute 6 individuals, and then run out. Absolutely.
Sorry, just responding to something in chat. Yeah, so this is one of those things where, and that's why I laid it out as, high risk extraction. So, this is the setting. We're in, a patch or two, maybe more post server meshing. Server's running at 30 FPS. We've got the new FPS combat AI ported over from Squadron 42. This is all our hopium copium wish list for how things are going to go. And so now we have, you and your people in your org are leveling up these mercenary missions in order to get the reputation, to get the next ones, to get those higher payouts and be able to use that reputation to get the gear you want or whatever. But you have these limitations, and based off who's online, how many people are online, what ships you guys have available, those are things you have to consider. We want to plan as much as we can, but hey, it's a Thursday night, and I've got me and 5 guys from the org. We really want to get this done, because if we can get this done, then that means somebody can get the mission for the very high risk, and we're gonna have more people online, on Saturday. But we need to get this mission done for the org, so the org has the right amount of reputation. And so you're like, okay, well, how do we make this happen with the people that we have, with the equipment we have available, and obviously, I think all 3 of us on screen probably have a lot of ships, but for a lot of backers, yeah.
What do you mean?
I just assumed.
Why would you call me out like that?
I feel attacked.
Attacked.
But so we're thinking about this from the perspective of, in a couple of years, your average backer is probably the number of ships per backer is probably going to be going down, and the size and expense of ships is going to be going down. And so your average gamer as they're leveling up. Maybe they, between them, for a mission like this, the most capable ship you have for the mission is a Vanguard hoplite, because you do have to make that trek from Seraphim Station to Pyro 3. And it's a bit of a trip and back. Yeah. So hey man, I'm a PTU Wave 2 backer.
I don't want to start that point in this conversation, but I'm like, man, I'm such a high level concierge. I'm on Wave 2, buddy. Mm-hmm. Let's go.
I'm not that high. I'm not far behind you, but I definitely won't be getting that high.
I'm not that high. And
be a subscriber.
My wife would divorce me if I became that high organically without subscription. So no.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry.
I like being married. I know.
Yeah.
Go back on mute.
But that's this is the reality of this situation, because as during a normal game's progression, you're not going to have it all. You're going to have more limitations, and as the game progresses and more people come in, more and more people are going to have more limitations, and that makes the game fun and interesting as well. And so given that this sort of scenario's limitation, a tier with the Vanguard hoplite, it's just you and 5 guys. It nothing to do with cheeseburgers. For this mission, what special equipment do you want to bring on board the ship? Not necessarily what you would be putting on your kit off the bat, but things you can bring in the ship inventory in order to give you that edge.
I'm not sure I understand the cheeseburger comment.
You've never been to Five Guys? You guys don't have Five Guys on the East Coast?
Yeah, we do, but how does that apply to what I'm going to put in my hoplite?
That's the limitation, is that you have a team of 5 people and a hoplite. What are you gonna? What do you want to put in your hoplite? In terms of,
sure, I thought better of you.
My kid's asleep. I'm a dad. I make dad jokes.
Oh my gosh. So that really depends on what the inventory system looks like, right? I mean, if they give up on the every drawer is important, and I have kind of the larger open inventory for the team to draw from. Let me put it a different way. It's going to be a party box, because right now, let's just talk about it from right now, and let's assume that nothing changes with inventory. You're going to have a party box. That one SCU box is going to have to have everything you need in it. Eventually, that could probably transition to somewhere in the ship stores, assuming that they give us appropriate drawers and storage capability internal to a hoplite that can hold, that everybody can access, right? So, because right now, if you put it in the inventory, you're the only one that can access it. So let's just pretend everything's party box accessible, right? So you're gonna have to fill out your weapon racks with a variety of weapons, right? So you're gonna need some sniper rifles, you're gonna need some LMGs, right? Because everybody else is probably going to carry an SMG or an assault rifle, right? And then you have some backup heavy weapons. They've gone to having what is it? The railgun and rocket launcher have their own special purpose built rack now, right? So you can't
heavy weapons rack.
Yeah, heavy weapons rack. So you can't just put your heavy weapon now in any rack. So that's I don't know if they're going to go back and retool the hoplite, but let's say they go back and retool the hoplite so that it has at least one, right? You're going to want that filled probably with a railgun, because the rocket launcher sucks, right? So that's kind of your weapon. Yeah, Animus sad face, man, that thing sucks and they need to fix it. As far as so there's that. So probably a heavy weapon, probably some sniper rifles, probably some LMGs, right? In case you run into more problems than you expected, you can now lay down a heavier volume of fire. And that assumes you can't use the ship for close air support, because there are too many weapons platforms, right? Which I would argue that, why would you not try to destroy those at some point so the ship then can be used as close air support? so it's a fighter dropship, right? So there's that. Lots of medical, right? You're going to need some backup medical. Really the issue comes down to, you can't respawn in this thing. So if you die, you're kind of hosed, right? So really you need some medical stuff, food, water. If you're going to standardize rifles, right, then you can standardize ammunition, right? And the party box can have a whole butt ton of ammunition inside it so that you can resupply if you need it. And because if everybody carries a different size round, right, that's why NATO 5.56 exists. I can pull an Estonian's magazine and use his rounds. I can pull the French guy's thing and use that. It doesn't matter. It's 5.56. It's NATO. Right. So you standardize that, right? So you want a single ammunition type that's stored in the ship that you can consistently pull from, right? Same goes for your sidearm, 9mm, right? Whatever you've decided is your most effective sidearm, right? And that's, food, water, ammunition, heavy weapons in case you get in trouble, right? For me, that's probably, for a mission like this, what you need, right? You don't need much more. If they give us specialist equipment, right, like binos or unique attachments or things like that you can hop swap on the fly, right, you might put a variety of those in, whatever options they give you, so that you can then make adjustments to your team if you would like to. But we don't know what those would be, right? This is speculation on our part because we don't even know. Hey, components for armor, sure, whatever, man, cool. That sounds like a great idea. We don't know what those would be, but if you have a bunch of IR or thermal crap in your ship and you land and it's damn nighttime, everybody equips your thermal mod and now you have thermal, right? And you move out, or maybe you just equip thermal on your sights. Right, because we haven't talked about weapons at all, and the attachments and the different characteristics that a barrel or a forward grip might give you, right? So we know that we're not going to go into that, but there are things that other sight that you might bring along depending on the environment you're in, right? If they allow us to cut power to a facility, right, it doesn't matter if it is daytime; it's underground. If I am allowed to cut power to a facility using my little multi-tool, I might do that, and everybody goes in with IR or thermal, or really thermal at that point, because there'll be no light inside a UGF to amplify, right? So, you might have IR flashlights and laser pointers so that the enemy never sees you because it's pitch black and everything you see is in the IR spectrum. So unless they have that, and they may restrict that to veterans and elites, right? Their rookies and regulars may not have any of that kit, so it gives you
they don't have the funding,
decided advantage, right?
The budget didn't allow for it, and
So because they're pirates and they have no budget.
Yeah, the pirate S4 said no, we don't have
they steal.
Yeah.
So that's what I would bring. So there's a variety of sights, silencers. Just depends on weapon systems that you might want for different situations. The one time I got to interact directly with guys downrange who were on a special forces team, I walked into their talk because they had SIPR, they had the secret internet. I didn't have the secret internet, even though I had a clearance as high as theirs. I wasn't cool, right? They let me use their stuff.
You're still not cool.
Look,
you didn't have a beard.
Is a well-known fact, okay? But I walked in and they had from floor to ceiling, every weapon system, variant you could imagine. It was the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life. They had old Vietnam era grenade throwers, right? 40mm, the single tube. I don't remember what it's called, right? But now we have the underbarrels. They didn't have that. They had the pull it out from behind your back, shoot it off, and they had all this crazy old freaking weapon systems that they just had everything to their heart's content. And that's kind of what your internal is, right? It's all the tools you think you might need for a given situation, and that's it. And that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah.
Sulyce, sorry.
Sulyce.
Yeah, hopefully I took some of your good ideas like you did on the Intel discussion.
Last question: what special equipment do you want to bring, in the ship's inventory?
Man, I mean, it is hard going after a tier here because, yeah, I mean, all other like sexy avenues of approach that I would propose, I mean, it would be cutting off. It'd be cutting off the electricity. It would be identifying that our target's not there, so I need a bunker buster. So maybe it's a different, type of munition. Um, I would want special equipment for bug out purposes. So let's say we're in there, they knew that we were coming, and now our main ship is completely destroyed. Do we have a bug out, a way to get back off surface? So, yeah, I mean, not to completely sidestep my part of this. I think Atira hit the nail on the head, right? I think having those additional assets going into the dark, going into like a bunker underground, let's say it's jump town, it's above ground, right? You would pretty much deploy with the same equipment. You're going to want, let's say, zip ties. You're going to want some ability to, capture prisoners and then now enter prisoner loop. But yeah, I think Atira hit the nail on the head. So thanks. We're back. We're even now, Atira. How's that? Me personally,
I love the idea of zip ties if they can't respawn if they're in zip ties.
Yeah.
Oh, how cool would that? You like lock a player into his body and he's stuck there, and all he can do is log out.
Yep.
That would be a great jump town TTP.
So here's how I'm assaulting the objective. So whether it's above ground. So I'm dropping some sort of EMP. So I'm disrupting all sorts of electronics, their communication plan, their inability to know what's happening outside of their four walls. So I'm dropping what I can. And if that's too obstructive or if that's too much, I'm doing exactly what Atira said. I'm sending in a forward element whose sole purpose, right? It's my spooks. My sole purpose to go, I'm going to cut those lines. I'm going to make the power dark. Right. So even in daylight, if I can't open up electronic doors, if I can't, if the shutters automatically close, it's now dark. These are things that you want to shut down power so it minimizes the amount of reaction. And then at that point, it becomes just your good old fashioned insertion extraction. Right. I need something to blow doors down. I need something to blow cell doors open. But that's exactly how I am taking out this objective. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of other considerations in an example that you're proposing. It doesn't sound like there's any other collateral. I don't need to worry about Shion or, oh my gosh, the Banu, right? There's no like good forest that I need to consider. It sounds to me like I'll have my 2 people to extract. Everything else can just be leveled at that point. So that's personally how I'm approaching that.
Yeah, definitely snatch and grab would be a good way. You did mention
one thing. Can I also
say,
bring up a fantastic point, and as we go into harder and harder missions and we create this extreme high risk extraction or just elimination raid, we have these bunkers, right? And they're just an existing bunker, right? But there's no civilian facilities around it. There's nothing like that could get in the way. And as we get into putting inhabitants into towns, CIG needs to then integrate the criminals into that, right? Because then it does introduce those fantastic, well, if I accidentally smoke that Banu because he goes running across my line of fire, well, now I'm taking a hit on rep there, right? That would be exceptional way to make a mission more challenging. Not necessarily increasing the number of enemies or the preparedness, but it's situational awareness. You now have civilians in the area. It's an urban area, even a small urban area like a village, and maybe just one house or the entrance to the UGF or that UGF, but all the civilian crap on the approach. That then is a legitimately harder challenge because you don't want to lose rep by accidentally murdering a bunch of innocents. Or if you're a pirate and you don't care, go ahead. Just depends on gameplay. Maybe that makes a pirate's gameplay easier than a legal player's gameplay because he doesn't care.
I do like something Sulyce, you mentioned, like having, I guess you could call it a bug out kit or something like that. If you made us, you land on the opposite side of a ridge line and you drop just one of those like 1/8 SCU or a couple 1/8 SCU boxes just with extra rations, medical stuff, and some reloads, and maybe like some like a beacon type system. So if you're because that's the hoplite has how many? Wait, 4 seats in the back? Is it 4 seats?
No,
It's not
it's more than that now.
Yeah, it's not an origin,
I'm
so I
having
don't care. How's that?
Jeez.
I'm stroking out.
Okay,
Ghost,
well,
Ghost
do
is
you
in
have that?
chat.
No, it's I think it's 4 in the front, and I think it's 8, isn't it? Ghost, I know you're in chat. It's 8 or 6. It's more than you would think. We were in it today, running relic missions.
How many drop seats does the hoplite have?
In the hoplite, it's 8, right?
Yeah. No, it's less than that. It's either 4 or 6. I can't remember though.
It may be 6. It's
6 jump seats. Okay, cool.
None of them work right now either.
Yeah.
By the way.
But you essentially your team, you've got you've got room for a pilot, a turret gunner, and 6 jump seats. Well, you've got 2 people you have to extract, so you've got 4 jump seats. But like I do really like the idea. Yeah,
immune to G-force.
Mm-hmm. I do really like the idea of having a bug out kit just in case, because you're flying one ship in there. You don't you don't have multiple ships for extraction. You don't have any escorts or something like that. So you have 2 options of, do you land the ship a ways away and fight your way in, and then potentially maybe you have to fight or trek your way out, and that this could become complicated because you don't know the status of these injured people, and it's really important to bring a medic, and that's you have a medic, you have somebody who can treat these people that are being rescued, because if they can't move, okay, well then we need to move them ourselves. If the ship is on the other side of a mountain and we hoofed it in here, for 5-10 minutes or something like that, trying to hoof it out on a rescue, that's not good. And so now,
it's so funny you bring that up, because I was thinking about that, and me or Sulyce, neither of us were like, "What's the status of the guy we're rescuing?" We're like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna shoot
Leave
these
it to the
mothers.
medic.
It's gonna be awesome."
Like, what do you mean you can't walk? I just killed you. Here, have a Cliff Bar. You'll be fine.
C4 on that gate and blow it open, and he's gonna die along with the lock.
I mean, it doesn't matter their condition. It doesn't matter their condition if there's like OPFOR there, so you got to kill the enemy first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you are right. That is a real consideration. Is like, do we know if he was injured when he was captured? Are they prone to torture?
your medic can only do so much, and so you have to think about that. Do you land really close by in your hoplite? And then if you're landed and then you include your pilot and your turret gunner as part of your team, well, your ship is undefended. If reinforcements come in, then what happens? But if you've planned ahead of that, if you've planned ahead, this scenario could, maybe you've got Ghost with you with his railgun, and you're an enemy cutlass and like a fighter or 2 come in, and before Ghost can take him out, they've taken out your hoplite. Well, at least Ghost takes him out, but now you don't have a ride, and now your only way out is, I got to get back to the beacon that's in our bug out kit on the other side of the hill, and we at least will be able to hunker down there and wait for rescue.
Respawn and come in with his C8.
Yeah, Ghost, your name is Railgun now. That you.
That's right.
You're just a walking railgun at this point. But that's a really good, as far as planning ahead and having, that's a good contingency. And it's a good contingency you can easily plan for with a small bit of kit and a 2-minute detour, because to drop that off, and okay, everybody knows where this is, and if something happens to our primary exfil plan, this is our secondary exfil plan. Please don't make the 9-line medevac a game loop. I got bad news for you for what they're planning for with medical gameplay, beacon. But yeah, so
deploying a medical beacon takes like 2 seconds. A 9-line medevac, like don't make me do that in game.
Oh god, not the 9. I can't even remember how to give a 9-line.
It's just because I always
received them. I've never given one.
Relevant.
I never had to be a ground medic. So
yeah, it's relevant for real world. It's not for the game. Right, 900 years in the future, there is some level of automation here, right?
Yeah.
But
it's.
To that point, though, you say you drop a beacon, and that beacon allows you to see. That beacon is emitting something, which means it can be detected.
Yep.
I would argue I would rather have satellites in orbit that are allowing me to see the ground through some type of MGRS system, military
Mhm.
grid reference system, for those of you in chat. So I can then fall back to a specific position after calling that out, right? Without having anything giving away my position as far
Yeah.
as emissions go. Right? Because while I don't know that the NPC pirates are going to hone in on that particularly, if you're dealing with PvP, they certainly will if they see it.
Oh, I'm looking for
Mhm.
that if it's me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so I've just been hit. I've
Yeah.
got my personal org base, and I've just been raided. And I know I took out their ship, but I know I didn't kill them all. Where are they going now? Well,
Mhm.
if they have to like a beacon, and we know that they're going to let us put points down, but those points should be physicalized and they should be detectable in some way, right? In some way. I don't know how CIG wants to do that. I'm not going to tell them how. It's a game-ism, but in reality, it's emitting something so that I can see it, right? I would rather personally have just be able to say everybody has a map. It's got a grid reference system on it, and I could tell
Mhm.
them go to this place, and then my exfil pilot has the same map, and I tell him where I am, and now he can come get me, and it's not a problem, right?
Yep.
So
Some way
that
to
way I emit
communicate your
nothing.
position for exfil if your primary exfil goes bad. I think the only
Or
other
you
thing
drop
equipment-wise,
that beacon down for him to see like 2 minutes out, so that
Mhm.
the enemy can't resupply or can't get to you before he does. He,
Yeah.
she, whoever your pilot is, and then you're out and gone, and it doesn't matter if they see that beacon or not because you're gone.
The only thing I would add as far as equipment, and this is not something CIG has discussed, but they have your they have the floating bounty things that they've shown players pushing around, where this is the player in carbonite, and we're going to push it to deliver the bounty. We do need some sort of thing that you can deploy in order to carry somebody who's wounded and can't move. And obviously, for players, you don't want players to be incapacitated for long periods of time. But for NPCs, especially for missions, I could see that as part of the mission. This NPC is badly injured; they can't follow you. You have to extract them, and whether it's just getting them out of your the image that we shared, whether maybe you have to drag them up to the surface, but then you can get them in your levitating gravlev litter that you can use to quickly move them to exfil, because
Into your hoplite that it's not going to interact well, and then the ship explodes.
Yeah.
What did I think Paul called gurneys weapons of mass destruction
Mhm.
today or yesterday or a couple days ago? Yeah.
But some
Yes.
way
Yeah.
to move an injured person in need of rescue, which for these people is for these characters makes that very possible. But it also, by
Knock
having
them
that
out, use
complication,
distractor beam.
you and this is a very gamified way of doing things, but whether they give us a timer or not, just knowing that you have this much time after you have taken down after you've taken down all the NPCs before their reinforcements show up, and you have that long to get the people out of there and get your team out of there before they show up, because otherwise you're going to have a whole bunch more problems on your hand. And I think
that should be covered. That should be covered by something like, we have another facility within X amount of distance, and once the bell alarm goes up, you have this long before it responds. They need to deal with that in lore, because I don't disagree with you that makes sense. But right now, we just know if we do something right, a Cutlass is going to show up,
Mhm.
and it's random. However, based on distance and speed of ships, you would know, and trends, right? You would know how long it's going to take for them to respond, or if they respond at all, because there is a percentage they're like, I don't care. I didn't like those guys anyway.
That does make it a lot more exciting, though, and I to be able to think it, because we've had those sort of missions in other games where, sweet, you think the mission's done, complete, all right, good job, everybody. Wait, what's this? Oh, it's not over?
Well, they need to get out of the ship first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
so if the damn Cutlass lands, they need to divulge their ground pounders.
Mm-hmm.
That would be nice.
Or the current
Yeah.
state of just a cutlass on top of a cutlass on top of a cutlass.
Yeah, well, that's because we killed them so fast. But like, if you're by yourself and a cutlass comes in and you don't have a railgun or you don't have ghosts to shoot it out of the sky, right? You do need. I don't care how you do it, CIG. Just have them fucking spawn in, right? Just boop, right? If we can't sort out how to make these guys get out of the chair and walk down the ramp, just have them spawn in beside the ship. But right, like,
well, yeah, and that's going to work eventually. But
ground pounder
they're also
reinforcements.
The other thing is you could have them spawn from just out of visual range, and say, hey, they're coming in from another camp, or a ground vehicle, spawns in from a certain distance, because that cutty is just spawning in outside of visual range. Do the same thing with a ground vehicle, but that could make things really interesting and really really scary real quick. Oh, we might not be equipped for them rolling in with a Nova Tonk and 2 APCs worth of troops. But yeah, we should probably wrap this up because we've been going for over 2 hours now, and I think we've had a lot of good conversation. But we all got things to do. But before we go, do you guys have any last minute thoughts that you wanted to add?
Well, I have notes on weapons that we didn't really get to, which is fine. But
so part 2 of a podcast in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we could come back through and talk about specific weapons. I love that they're bringing
the pew-pew. Yeah,
I love they're bringing in 40K rad weapons. Right, we're just gonna give our friends cancer with gamma radiation guns. That's great. Love that. But yeah, I mean the customization system. The Modern Warfare 2, right? The gun, what's it called? The new thing, Gunsmith, right? Where you can you could tear weapons all the way down to the receiver and rebuild them up to be a certain capability. I think that's another interesting way that you could really, because they talk about in the video, we want your armor to be like your ship, but it's on you. Well, the same thing applies to the weapon system you carry into battle, right? And even soldiers at the infantry platoon level on the line have some level of customization on their weapons. Be it something as simple as where they put the foregrip, right, on the rail, to sometimes they change out stocks on their own. Sometimes they just tuck the other one away in their bag until they redeploy. They do all kinds of fun stuff. So there's definitely stuff that we could do there that they should experiment with that lets us kind of tweak our guns. And maybe that comes with the Endeavor. Well, it shouldn't come with the Endeavor though, with like tweaking guns, because that's beyond what we're talking about here. I'm talking about just like, a long barrel rifle has greater accuracy at range, right? A short barrel is more convenient in a CQB fight. It doesn't necessarily, and it changes the aim point of where that weapon is. So, I think they have talked it once a long time ago about zeroing, but I'm not sure. It's a long time. Anyway, there's a lot they could do with the weapons structure that we could talk about in another video about making those very customizable and niche and personalized as well.
Niche. I said niche like 30 times in the last Pathfinders podcast, so it's like my thing now. Sulyce, any last minute thoughts, bud?
As well.
No, I don't want to open up a can of worms, because again, if we're going to do part 2, I think this would be a great conversation for part 2. But
we don't have can openers in game yet, so we can't open up a can of worms.
That's right.
Want the little one right from World War II. That's
Oh yeah, just a little like Swiss Army.
The one that people have like kills with. They like Germans with them.
That's right.
Yeah,
weapon of choice. Weapon of choice. No, just quickly, this is always really fun to ideate. So thanks for putting this all together, Tree. It's really fun to have the good idea fairies, on steroids floating around, and for us to have this conversation about. Yes, it does add more time to the development tracker. It's feature creep. It's all the buzzwords that we're gonna say in chat and we're gonna say post production. But at the end of the day, though, like you want this, and it's one of the main reasons why I'm happy we're still in alpha. Not to go into a whole podcast about this, but like I don't want them to be done yet. I want the sky to be the limit, or the universe to be the limit. I want them to bring in experts in their craft to contribute and build mass levels and layers to everything that they're doing. Like I want the medical loop to require a freaking PhD. Right, like
I don't know about that, but maybe
like I want like to perform surgery. I want to be able to do a puzzle to solve. Like I just want it to be like, I don't want it to just be World of Warcraft 2.0, where it just ends up becoming an MMO and we play it again in another 3 years and hope for a better, expansion. So I love the conversation. It's been great to meet you, Tira. It's been good to be on here as well. But yeah, man, it's a good conversation, but one we can easily get taken.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
And if CIG ever hear us, we're trying to inspire you.
Yep.
Right?
I always try to keep it, and that's why we make the resource document and we have links and stuff, because I try to keep it grounded in things that are either have been said or are in development, and so that there is always speculation, but it's grounded in that they're already working on this, they're already working on that. This is part of the plan. And so it's not anything that's wildly off base. Like when we're talking about drones, like that's a thing. The tech is there. And yeah, we don't have it yet, but they're already working on it. It's already planned. These rescue missions, the medical stuff, the different devices, the subcomponents for your armor, all of this stuff is is already in the works, is already planned, it's already in development. But what can players do with it to make it more interesting, to make it more challenging, to make it a more rewarding experience, but also what sort of things are we hoping to see in order to give us that sort of challenge, and so that it isn't just a simple wash, rinse, repeat game over and over and over again. What's going to give us the depth that's going to make you think, because it's instead of just being a Twitch based game, Twitch has been like being fast. The games that really make you think and challenge you to put some effort into something and to plan ahead with others, those are the best experiences, at least for me. And so that's why I like doing these shows. Before we go, I forgot to plug it at the beginning of the show, but I started this podcast as a way to talk with like-minded folks, but also as a way to drive that, everything I do in my content is for charity driven. I take no monetization from myself. So those of you guys who complained about ads in the chat, just know that you having to suffer through the ad sends money to stackup.org. So please consider supporting them directly if you want to by clicking on the link in the chat. And if you don't want to watch ads, please consider subscribing to my channel, whether here or on YouTube. And that way you don't have to watch them. And because I donate 100% of that money to stackup.org. It's a mission that I believe in. That's why these guys are on, because it's, we're all veterans and military members, and we're gamers. This is not just a hobby, but this is something that we all believe in, and it helps us with our own trials and tribulations. So that's why I do it. But before we sign off, we've still got 18, 20 people hanging out live. Does anyone have any suggestions for a raid on this lovely Sunday afternoon? Anyone playing Star Citizen out there that we should send some sense of love? Let's see.
I'm looking at my lists right now.
I don't have anybody that I follow is online right now. HC Vertigo.
AC Vertigo, yeah.
Vertigo. Bingo. Good call. All right. Oh, and look at that. He's flying. It's not a hoplite, but he is flying a Vanguard. All right. So we will raid HC Vertigo. Yeah.
It's a great choice if they would just give it a gold standard.
Yes. It's overdue.
Bring in armor!
Alrighty. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you guys for being here and hanging out with me. It was really a pleasure. Go check out the Beyond the Verse podcast. Go check out Atira's channel. Come hang out in the Ammo Discord if you're looking for a good org to be a part of. And then, Sulyce, you do Soul Provisions. Is that what your org's called, right?
Yeah. SOL, Soul Provision. Yeah, that's going to end up being when there's an actual mercantile loop. It's going to be all things mercantile. I run Amazon Business for Amazon, so I have an affinity for for
Ah.
setting up prices and selection. So yeah, we're gonna do that, and of course, it's gonna require security and everything else. So
Well, cool. Yeah, be sure to check them out.
Yeah.
And then thanks again for hanging out with us. And you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And we are sending the raid.